Yes, Michael Mukela. Mukela. I'm so sorry. Welcome to American Swahili News podcast here in Columbia, South Carolina, and American Swahili News. Just introduce yourself to our show. What's your role with respect to the Sam Johnson, who's running for mayor of Columbia?
Yeah, well, I am the communications director for his campaign, but it goes from that. I've known Sam for well over 10 years. We worked together during Mayor Benjamin's first campaign, and him and I went into the mayor's office together after Mayor Benjamin won that election. I've been working with Sam for a lot of years, and I've got so much respect for him.
So tell us, our listeners and our viewers, how do you see the campaigning's heading now? With respect, I think we have a couple days left before the election. I think we know the election is on November 2nd of this year. So where do you see your campaign is heading, or your candidate at this time?
I think it's clear that we've got a lot of momentum, and that momentum is just growing. Just last week, just Thursday, Sam announced his all-point strategy to end gun violence. He's making him the only candidate to take on gun violence, and with a real plan to end gun violence, the gun violence crisis we're facing in Columbia. And I think that, building with all the other issues he's taken on, from justice reform to job creation to protecting our families from the COVID-19 pandemic, I think Sam has shown himself as the candidate who's willing to take the lead on the tough issues, and with real ideas and real plans and new ideas, bringing those to bear that can really move the needle here in Columbia.
So we have covered gun violence, justice, or political issues here in Columbia, South Carolina. So where do you see, I think at this moment, before the election, do you think the other candidates, they're not addressing those of the issues that you just mentioned a few minutes ago?
Well, I try not to talk about, what the other candidates are doing or what they're not doing, but I don't see anybody that's taking these issues on like Sam Johnson has. We're talking about the other candidates for mayor combined for nearly 40 years on city council, but we're looking at, over the past 5 years, shootings with injuries. In other words, people shot in Columbia over the past 5 years have shot up more than 35%. Over that same time period, the vacancies at the Columbia Police Department, the officer vacancies, have nearly doubled. Now, these are folks who are on council. The question is, why haven't you addressed these issues? Whereas Sam is pushing these issues. That's a key point for him in his all points plan to end gun violence. Is we need 90 more officers to close those vacancies, and that encompasses a lot of things, because when you fix that problem, when you get the officers you need, it's not just enforcement, though that's certainly part of it. That's a big part of it. But it means you have more officers, so you can get the officers out of their cars and walk in the beat to where they actually know the neighborhood they're in. I know when we were working in Mayor Benjamin's office, he made a big push and successfully got a home loan program for police officers willing to live in the city. Well, that program has fallen by the wayside over the past few years. And we're talking about we need to reinvigorate that program, because we need to attract not just not the officers, but the best officers, you know? And we're talking about a 10-year contract to make sure we don't have this issue where our officers come in and get their training in Columbia and then turn around and go to Casey or Lexington or somewhere else. And we need to keep those officers here. It's not just recruitment, it's also retention as well. That contracting and the step pay increases would significantly help with that. And all of this, it would help bring programs. Like there used to be this program, Police and Paintbrushes, where you got police officers working to fix some of these codes enforcement issues in neighborhoods where, let's say, you've got a person, a senior citizen, a retired person, and these aren't major code issues, but their house needs a coat of paint. You know, a broken window needs to be fixed. Well, they're living on a fixed income. They can't do it, and they can't do it themselves. They're senior citizens, but these cops would do it. You know, so that not only fixes this code enforcement problem, but it helps get our officers involved in the community. So the next time something bad's getting ready to happen in that community, a shooting's getting ready to happen in that community, folks who live in that neighborhood are much more likely to talk to a police officer, especially when they've seen that police officer involved in helping the community. And that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. You know, there was a forum last week where one of the other candidates said, well, and because part of St. Johnson's plan is hiring social workers, you know, social workers, so that we head off a lot of these problems. And one of the candidates said, well, we hired a social worker, we have a social worker working in the police department. And it's like, yeah, you have one social worker. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to move the needle. We're talking about realities that really move the needle. You know, let's give these officers the tools they need. Let's expect the best for them. Let's increase their training and increase accountability. But let's also give them the tools they need to protect our communities, our homes, and our families. You know, because that's not what's happening right now. They don't have the tools they need. That's why you have, roughly 90 vacancies at the police department. And when you have that, you can't do all these other programs that really do move the needle. So that's really, I don't see any other candidate talking about these issues. Yeah, they talk about, we need to support public safety and support police officers. But you ask me, well, how are you going to do that? They don't have a plan to do it. And when you look at the history, they haven't done it in the past. I mean,
Michael Mukela, you've covered a lot of things from the police vacancies, violence in the community. So just in short, can you share with us just a little bit, what do you see or what kind of measures your candidate will use to build the relationship between the police officers and the community in the city of the Columbia? What kind of measures your candidate will take?
Well, the biggest measure is, being involved in the community, a constant communication with members and leaders in the community. Because if they're saying we don't see enough of the police officers, we're not talking with them enough, then, and clearly, right there, you have that issue. But you also put in part of this contract, you're required to commit X number of your hours, not asking you to come in on your day off, but part of your job and hours a week is being involved in the community. And it's a simple thing to make that mandated, and that's one of the main ones.
So share with us just two things your candidate, if he becomes the mayor of the city of the Columbia, he'll do, and you think you say you'll be proud of if those two things get implemented here in the city of the Columbia.
Well, and really there's a whole lot more than two. But I think, two of the biggest ones is implementing this all-point plan for gun safety. One of the things I'm very excited about, and he's pushing for the city to implement it now, is hiring a chief health officer for the city of Columbia, because that not only really helps move the needle in protecting our families and our neighborhoods from this COVID-19 pandemic, but it helps us address these long-standing issues. Now, you take people living in zip code 29203 versus people living in zip code 29204, and compare them, and you'll see in 29203 everything from heart disease, diabetes, cancer, breathing issues. It's double in 29203. You're easily twice more likely to be impacted by these serious health issues if you live in 29203 than you are in 29204. And this is an issue that's been the case for a generation. 29203 has the most diabetes-related amputations in the country per capita, and it's just not acceptable. And Sam has been very, very strong in pushing that plan. I think it was definitely the first plan he released, and I think it was just days after he announced. And council has actually finally, after we've been calling for it for 60 days, council finally took the issue up, and they've sent it to committee. Though some members of council have said, very clearly they oppose it, and you can't think of a good reason why you would oppose. I mean, I can't imagine why anybody would say we're in the middle of the deadliest pandemic since 1918, but we shouldn't hire a doctor. That's just ridiculous to me. And to go show you, that's a perfect example, because for Sam, it's not just politics, it's personal. He lost his aunt to COVID-19. He lost his grandmother and his grandfather to COVID-19. He's got a beautiful 14-month-old at home, and he's watching these babies being infected and connected to ventilators, and he'll stop at nothing to protect her and to protect all of our children from this deadly virus. And we can't imagine why anyone would say no to that. They do, but it's frankly ridiculous stuff.
So the last word, Mr. Michael Mukela, if I pronounce your last name correctly, what is your, let me ask you this question, what exactly your candidate will do to help the business community in Columbia, South Carolina, and the city of the Columbia, because we've seen a lot of businesses close down, even across the street from your headquarters. What your candidate will do to help the business community to bringing back the businesses in the city of the Columbia? The last word.
Well, a lot of things. Everything from, he wants the city to invest a significant amount of this money they're getting now from the federal government on expanding Wi-Fi. And as you know, a small business, if you don't have access to high-speed wireless, you're out of business. I mean, that's just, it's as important for most folks as having your water turned on or your power turned on. So that's a big one. Making sure we are significantly increasing our investment in small minority-owned businesses, using the power of the city's purse to make sure we're contracting with a diverse group of businesses, everything from small, minority-owned, women-owned, but making sure we're investing that money locally. Those are two major things, and those two things alone are significant, and would significantly move the needle for your local businessman and woman trying to make ends meet today. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
That's the Michael Mukela is walking in here at the Johnson for Mayor head office on Gervais Street, on Lady Street, 700 block of Lady Street. Thank you for taking your time speaking with the American Swahili News podcast and American Swahili News YouTube channel. Thank you, Mr. Mukela.
Thank you so much, and everybody come on by. We got lots of signs and bumpy stickers. Come on by.
Thank you. Bye.